Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another webinar from the TUC. We will be getting going in a couple of minutes. We're just going to let the Zoom room fill up with some more people. You're all really welcome here today on this lovely May afternoon. Hi, everyone who's just joined us. You're all very welcome on the Zoom webinar today. We'll be getting going in about 1 minute. We're just going to let a few more people join us here in the Zoom room. While we're waiting, do say hi in the chat. Tell us your workplace, your union. We always like to hear where you are and what you're doing. Okay, hi everyone. I will get going with a bit of webinar housekeeping. So you're all very welcome on today's webinar. I'm Anna from the TUC, and I'm delighted again to be joined from colleagues, by colleagues and friends of the TUC from Unity Trust Bank. We've got Martin, Richard, and David. They'll be speaking shortly, but they're going to be talking to us about cybersecurity and more on that in a second. So if this is your first webinar, welcome back. If it's, sorry, welcome. If you're a repeat viewer, welcome back. We do have live captions on today's webinar. You can open those by clicking the close captions button, which is at the bottom of the video screen here. And great to see so many of you already saying hi in the chat, like tell us your union, your workplace, and do use it to exchange experiences and tips too. We saved some time to take some questions from you and put them to our panel. So again, at the bottom of the screen, there is a Q&A button. Post your questions there, and we'll get to as many of them as we can after the main presentation. And we are, of course, recording this webinar like we normally do. So if you have to leave or you miss something, don't worry, we'll send you a link to the recording either later today or tomorrow. And we may well be mentioning some resources. We will make sure those are shared with you also. So, as I said, today we're joined by colleagues from Unity Trust Bank. This is the third webinar I think we've done with them. Yeah, Martin's nodding. I wasn't sure if it was third or fourth. This is the third webinar we have done with Unity Trust Bank, and we're really, really delighted that we're doing this series because the TC and Unity Trust have a long shared working relationship, bringing financial services and products to unions, to both unions nationally, regionally, or to union branches as well. And today we're going to be talking specifically about cybersecurity. Now, this might be something you hear about quite a lot. You might have heard words like firewalls, phishing, phishing spelt with a PH, not an F. That sometimes throws people. And we're here today to find out what all these things mean and how you, in your role, be it within a branch or within your union, can help protect you and your members cybersecurity wise. So I'm going to hand over to David to talk us through some of the key things here. And I think we've got a presentation going up, so that'll be on the screen shortly. So David, while we're getting that loaded up, can you just tell us a little bit about what you do for Unity Trust Bank, and then we'll be ready to get going.
Yeah, sure. So I'm head of information security at Unity Trust Bank. So we were just having a chat off screen earlier about what that means. So information security and cyber security are kind of two sides of the same coin. So information security is the processes and the standards and the policies that we write and we adhere to. Then cyber security sits on the other side. So it's kind of the controls that we use, firewalls, email gateways, and how we defend ourselves from online attackers and criminals. So both under my job remit. Been doing that for about 16 years now. Previously worked in IT for quite a while. I know I don't look that old, but I have been around the block a bit. So yeah, I'm doing that now at Unity Trust Bank. So we'll go through, I suppose, what I do for a living. So if we could move on to the next slide. So for the agenda, we'll talk about threat actors. So these are the criminals, common types of attack, some prevention tips, a few case studies, and some key takeaways. Then I'll hand over to Rich to go through the Unity research panel. And at the end, we'll have some Q&A. So please ask questions as we go. So we talked a bit about cybersecurity, and I'll kind of touch on what that means. So again, cybersecurity is part of my job where we look to defend ourselves from criminals. So various different criminal types out there. And the myth, as we've probably seen on TV, is that the hacker in the hoodie sits in the corner in the dark room. I have to admit, I do quite like a hoodie myself, but I've taken it off for this session, so I've dressed up. But it's not all hackers in hoodies. There are various different types, different categories of criminals and hackers out there. So we'll go through what those groups mean, what they're after, and kind of what their MO is. So if we can move on to the next slide. So cyber criminals. Cyber criminals are probably the most widespread group, one of the most effective groups, generally money driven, organized criminal groups. So these are quite hardened criminals in many cases. Not just out there to have a go and see what they can get away with, generally well organized. Some of these organizations even have HR teams, are on contracts, work shifts, so quite well organized and quite technically skilled. And then after that, there's nation state actors. So nation states, when we talk about nation states, we're generally talking about countries. So we're talking about China, Russia, North Korea, currently Iran, as you might guess, from what we've seen in the news. So again, these are highly skilled, well-funded, government-backed, have government agendas, usually politically motivated, do work in different sectors. So you might well see from the Koreans, if you see it in the news occasionally, the Koreans are generally money-based, so they're after income because of the sanctions on the country. The Iranians at the moment obviously involved in a war, so anything that goes with that, propaganda, recruitment. The Russians, again, in the war with the Ukraine, politically motivated, but again, operate a lot of the cyber criminal gangs, so money generating to bring income in, again, through to sanctions against the Russians from the Americans trying to bring money in. Insiders, so this is an interesting group. They could be people who are inserted into an organization to either do damage, offload bank account details, data that's valuable. They could just be somebody who's got themselves into an organization as a bit of luck, really, and then try to use their position in the organization to make some money by selling data. Also, you can have insiders who are actual legitimate employees, but are a bit careless. So they send data out that they shouldn't be sending out. It gets intercepted. So again, they're kind of a group of people that we keep an eye on internally, just with our controls, with our training, with our various different controls for email, especially, and web, just to keep an eye on the data that's coming in and out of the business. Hacktivists. So hacktivists are a group, not usually overly organized in that they're a large group of people. We may have seen in the news over the last few years, people like Stop Oil protests. So the Stop Oil protests a few years ago were sending hundreds of thousands of emails into businesses to try and cause disruption. They generally have an agenda, a political agenda, or an agenda they're focused on that they want to drive. That could be defacing websites. It could be, again, sending multiple emails, taking websites down. Script kiddies. So a bit of an Americanism. So script kiddies, they're kind of generally the loners. So more like the hackers in a hoodie in a bedroom. Um, the way the market is evolved with cyber criminals, if you're a cyber criminal and you've written yourself a good virus or a good piece of malware, another good way of making money is selling it. So you can sell this stuff online in dark web forums and various forums. And then if you're kind of a wanna have a go hacker, you can go and buy this stuff, and then you can use that to attack various companies. Some of them quite successfully. Unfortunately, we've seen various mobile companies hacked by a couple of teenagers in a bedroom. There are two terrorist groups. So again, a lot of the time, politically motivated, usually backed by nation states, have ideological goals. Skills can vary. Some of them that are backed by nation states, if we've touched on the Chinese, the Russians, that kind of size of organization, are very well motivated and are very skilled. Some of them have their own political agendas in smaller groups, less skilled. So these are kind of the main groups that are out there. Kind of generalizing these groups a bit because there's a bit of crossover. So you might have a cyber criminal who works for the nation state. So if you've been trained by your government, you're going to go off and make a bit of cash for yourself as well by becoming a cyber criminal. So it is a bit of a generalization, but there is some crossover. Next slide, please. So the top 5 attacks targeting unions. It's a bit of a misnomer, I suppose, this one, because I did some research to look at specifically for unions, but these are generally the top attacks across everything. So these are generally the top 5 attacks, but they do target unions as well. So phishing and AI social engineering. So I had to say AI. It's in there. It's the buzzword, I suppose, of the moment. So phishing is probably the biggest method of attack still. It has been for probably about the last 10 years. Phishing is generally the emails that you receive that's got a dodgy link or an attachment in it, and they want you to click on it. They can take control of your machine or bring some other nasty virus down onto that machine. AI social engineering. So back in the days where you used to get an email from a Nigerian prince who wanted to share his $50 million with you, it's generally easy to spot those type of emails because the grammar wasn't very good. The language that they used wasn't very good. But now, as tools have progressed, spell checkers, even Copilot from Microsoft and pieces of software like that now makes it far easier for attackers to create legitimate looking emails. Could also be a WhatsApp or a message or a phone call. Those things again have gained more sort of precedence. So we look at Jaguar Land Rover and Marks and Spencers. We believe that they were socially engineered, so they were phone calls and impersonation. Double extortion ransomware. Bit of a technical phrase that really for something that's probably quite basic, really. So what they want to do is, in a successful attack for a double extortion ransomware, is they want to encrypt your data. So they want to get hold of your data and encrypt it so they make it inaccessible, so you can't work or your firm can't work. Then they're going to basically ask you to pay a ransom to unencrypt that data. And now a lot of companies aren't. They're not paying ransoms. But what they then do is they'll steal some of the data and then say they're going to publish that. So the double part of that is, the double extortion is, they've encrypted your data and they want money to get it back, for you to get it back. The other way is they'll put pressure on an organization then to say, if you don't pay us the ransom, we'll leak the data. Strategic distributed denial of service attacks, again, another technical term. So this is disruptive. This is designed to take services down and websites down. What they do is they generally take over a lot of computers on the internet, all internet facing, and then they fire all of those computers at a website or a service all at once to take that service down. Generally short-lived, but can be quite disruptive, especially if it's done at specific times. As we've said, ballots or sales, stock sales, that kind of stuff. Supply chain compromise. So you might have a really good security posture. You might be on it. You might be up there. You've got all the controls in the world, and you're kind of feeling gold plated. You're really hard to attack. So what they'll do is they'll go and attack somebody that you deal with, who's a bit of a softer target. So they'll get into the other business or the other firm. They'll attack that firm, and then they'll insert something into that firm, like a virus or a piece of malware, that when you start dealing with them, they actually have the access into your system. So it's kind of a backdoor way of attacking different firms and different people. Identity and credential theft. It's been around for years. So this is a type of fraud. And if you've seen the fraud webinar, I'm sure it's been covered in there. Identity and credential theft. So this is about gaining enough information about an individual to impersonate them, or steal a credit card or a debit card. And that's what they want to do. They want to get hold of enough details to impersonate and make cash from it. So next slide, please. So we're going to see Bill now. Bill's not having a great day, but this is kind of a bit of a light-hearted video, and these are all real attacks.
Oh, hey, come on in.
Hey, Bill, there's this. I just wanted to check up on you. Did you happen to get that email from corporate yesterday?
Email from corporate. Oh, yeah. Looked a little fishy.
It was a phishing email. You didn't happen to click on that, did you, Bill?
No. Can't seem to recall. Just in case, let's recap my entire day. So. Yes, I remember I was getting out of my car and I found one of those random flash drives that are always in the parking lot, which is great because I really needed a new one. And then the next thing I know, this random guy I'd never seen, he's trying to get into the building and he said he didn't have his key on him. So, as a gentleman, I let him in. After that, I did what I always do and I had my lunch first thing. So while I'm eating lunch, the boss sends me a text and it says something like, "Hey, need you to run and grab these gift cards for me. Send me the card numbers back ASAP. No questions asked." He really seemed to want to get that point across. Don't ask any questions. After that, I headed up to the desk and did what I always do. I checked my email first. Well, couldn't remember my email password, but lucky I leave a sticky note with my password on it right next to my desk. And then I looked at the email from corporate and yes, I remember. I did not click it. So, pat on the back for me for cybersecurity. My password.
You need to go see HR, Bill.
Oh, I love those guys. Be there in a sec.
So there he is, oblivious Bill. All of those generally real attacks. So a USB stick dropped outside, great, free gift. Let's go and plug it in and see what's on it. A message from the boss, urgent message from the boss. If we could just skip on one. Urgent message from the boss, urgent call to action, all real. Happen every day. So when the slides come back up, we'll talk about phishing and social engineering a bit more. So as I was just mentioning, so generally, I'm not going to read these slides verbatim because that'd be a bit boring. So we'll kind of pull out a few points off each of these. Phishing and social engineering, I kind of touched on it in the attacks earlier. So phishing, one of the primary methods. We have different terms for different types of phishing. So phishing is voice, smishing is text, phishing is generally email, because we like to come up with different variations on a theme. So phishing generally is a call to action. So you'll get an email. It may not originally even have a link in it, or an attachment in it. It might just be to make contact, to build a rapport. Sometimes these are immediate attacks, so they will have a link in there or an attachment in there. They're generally there to put pressure on you. There'll be a call to action. It could be from a bank, from a manager, somebody senior. They want you to do something, and when you've done that something, it gives them a way in. So there'll be a piece of malware or a virus, or take you to a website where they can get hold of you and get into your organization. If we move on one. So the call is, and this would be a theme, common sense. Be careful with unexpected messages and calls. So again, are you expecting it? Do you deal with that person regularly? Is it unusual? Still, again, check for the grammar. Is the grammar there? Does it make sense? Do the graphics in the email match up? Does even the reply address look right? That's a really good indicator. Does the reply address look right? But pause before you click and apply a bit of common sense. Watch for pressure, especially with unusual requests. If you think it's odd or unusual, then report it. Don't click. First instinct is to click first, then think later. Think first, click later. That's the message. Next slide, please. So we talked about it earlier, double extortion ransomware. This is double bubble. So they've got in and they've encrypted your data, and then they've stolen some of your data as well. So you're unable to work, business is unable to work. Then they're now threatening in the press that they're going to release this data. So there's pressure on you to pay effectively twice over. Unfortunately, it works. Phishing works, double extortion ransomware works, the business model works. A lot of people have paid and make the decision to pay to get their data back. Unfortunately, you can't trust criminals, so they might pass on to your friends that you're a soft target. So not always a good way to get your data back. Next slide, please. So again, similar. They're gonna try and get in. They're gonna try and use phishing. They're gonna try and use phone calls, get you to perform an action. Best advice: keep everything up to date. So your mobile phone, your laptop, any computers, apply the software patches and the security updates. Use strong passwords, and I know that can be a pain, but use strong passwords. They could be passphrases that you just combine a few words together. Use multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication is not just a password, it's an extra thing that you know or have. So that could be a fingerprint, it could be Face ID, it could be setting up an SMS, so it texts you a code to help you log in, or even a phone call. Don't ignore strange behavior. So I know that sounds a bit odd, but if your phone or your computer starts running slow or crashing, that could be a sign. So again, report anything unusual. Supply chain compromise. Now, this is kind of a difficult one for somebody who's on the receiving end of it. So this is, I suppose, about dealing with legitimate companies. So as I said earlier, they're going to try and get into people that you do business with to then attack you. So deal with legitimate companies. Vet the companies, make sure that there's some due diligence done around who you deal with. You're kind of looking at, you expect the Googles, the Microsofts and the Apples of the world to be strong performers, but John and his mate Dave probably not so much. So again, it's about who you do business with and doing some due diligence on them. Next one, please. Pick trusted suppliers and software. Be wary of anything that's free, that's offered as a free download, especially. Usual supplier requests, or check for unusual supplier requests. Again, are they asking you to do something that's unusual? Keep your systems up to date and report anything that doesn't feel right. It's kind of it. It's the best you can do really for third-party compromise. You want to make sure that who you're dealing with is doing their thing as well, really. Identity theft. So again, this is getting hold of your data. This is, I suppose, the whole thing with cybersecurity revolves around the protection of data, really. There you go. I've summed up the whole thing. We can almost finish now. But so the whole thing is protection of data. So they want to get a hold of your information, your mother's maiden name, your date of birth, your debit card, your credit card number, your CVV. It's easy money if they can get a hold of that stuff. So, you know, it's about protecting it. Be careful who you deal with, who you give information to. Next slide, please. So again, protect personal information. Be careful who you share. You know, people, you get somebody into a conversation, it's quite interesting how quickly you can get some information out of them, where they work, who their mother is, all these kinds of things that can be generally just be brought out in 5 minutes of conversation, even on an email where it looks like you know, somebody isn't really pressuring. This stuff can just kind of come out. So just think before you share. Again, use strong, unique passwords. So this could be a passphrase. So, you know, the good thing is I sit here and my password is due to expire in 7 days, and I think, oh God, here we go again. I've got to change my password and I've got to remember it. But I look around the room, I've got a number of items in the room that I can just create into a password. So I could put 3 or 4 items together that are kind of sitting on my desk that I see every day that I could create a unique password with. And I could put an exclamation mark or an @ symbol in it just to make it a bit harder. Multi-factor again. So use a fingerprint as an extra layer or a text message. And be careful. Just be careful who's calling you. So again, the bank, the electricity company, is it really them? Do you really trust what they're asking for? And if you're not sure, go and get a phone number from somewhere and call them back. Next slide, please. Denial of service. So again, this is this big thing where they're going to try and send a ton of data to a website or a service to take it down. You think of back in the day, there used to be the Next sale. I don't know whether Next still do this massive sale, and everybody used to wait for 7 o'clock in the morning and all try and log on all at once, and then Next would have inevitably just fall over because it couldn't cope with the weight of the traffic. This is people doing that on purpose. So they've taken over a massive amount of computers on the internet, and they're going to fire all that traffic at a website or a group of websites to take it down. So if we imagine when the Oasis tickets went on sale, I know me and my wife and my son sat there trying to get Oasis tickets on 3 laptops and 3 mobile phones. If they could have taken Ticketmaster down for 2 or 3 days, that's a major loss of revenue. And that's what they do. They do it to cause disruption, take sites and services down. Next slide, please. So again, think about what would happen. So if there's a service that you use regularly, what would happen if that service goes down? How would you communicate with them or other people? Have you got a backup plan? Have you got a different way of communicating with things? So Martin, who's on the call, has the pleasure of running our incidents for us, and we all sit and talk on Teams about what's going on. But what if Teams is down? What would we do differently? How would we chat to one another and get things back up and running? So again, work with trusted IT and security partners. There are services out there that can absorb massive amounts of traffic. You pay for it, and they're there to keep sites and services up and running. You need to keep key services resilient. So something that the regulator has asked us to do, financial services industry especially, is make sure our key services are resilient. So something is targeted. Can we switch over to another service and keep things up and running? And again, report issues as soon as you start to see them. This is a bit of a difficult one because sometimes with distributed denial of service, it's just a waiting game to wait until it stops. It's generally quite short and comes back up. Next one. So now we've talked through a few of the attacks. These are kind of three case studies, 3 examples. So this was a data breach of an organization in 2025, 160,000 member organization. So they were hacked, highly sensitive data exposed. It led to credential theft. So this is people's personal details, put financial data at risk. Increase the risk of identity theft and scams, could cause that organization long-term reputational damage because everybody gets to find out about it. And then you end up getting people like the Information Commissioner involved and the regulator involved who can impose fines. So again, it's not a good position to be in. So that was effectively a data breach. So that's one of the types of attacks that we talked about. So suspected ransomware. So again, this is a 185,000 member organization, recent, again, 2024. And email systems were shut down. There was a possible compromise of payroll and member data. It took down comms because people couldn't email one another. There was uncertainty because people didn't know what was going on, because people couldn't be communicated with. Then there were following risks where they could use the data that they've stolen to target some of those members and the individuals that the data was stolen from. Next slide, please. So distributed denial of service. So this was quite an interesting one. This is 2011. So the website was hit, taken down. I believe it was timed, just timed in time for a key union announcement. So kind of looking like a political agenda here. So something was going to be announced and somebody decided to take the website down. Coordinated attack. Members couldn't access ballot info. Communications were disrupted. Blocked access, so people couldn't get in. People couldn't see what was going on. Again, just had to wait it out to see what was going to happen. Timed for a political purpose, we believe. So, I suppose the takeaway is protect your data. So don't share your login details or authentication codes. Be careful, especially where you post on social media, because people can overshare. They could, you could post a new job, you could post something personal on there. Hackers, criminals do watch out for this stuff. It's all part of the information gathering process to use that against you. So again, just have a think of where you're posting and what you're posting. I've said it before. So strong unique passwords and enable multi-factor authentication. Report unusual activity. So that could be machine slowdown, odd emails that you look like you've sent that you didn't know anything about. That's a good one. So keep a wary eye. Treat unexpected contacts with caution. So, those phone calls from the bank or somebody calling you and saying they're from IT or a supplier, just be careful. Again, validate them elsewhere if you need to. Don't overshare. Don't be pressured into sharing. And as I said previously, look at unusual slowness or outages and repeat error messages. They're great indicators that something nasty is on your machine. So cybersecurity, it starts with you. It's a people thing. It's not a technology thing necessarily. So technology can't protect us from everything. You are the first line of defense. So criminals often target people first, not systems, because tricking you into performing an action with a phishing email or a voice call or an attachment is the easiest way for them to get access. So the key takeaways, 3 things: stop. So think, common sense, take a minute, reread it, think again, don't click on it straight away. If you're unsure, stick to your general daily routine, do your general stuff, read the emails from the people that you know, put the other stuff away for a while, come back to it, have a think. And if you're not happy with it, don't click on it. Generally, people will contact you again, or go and find what you need for a contact number off a legitimate website somewhere and call them to ask them if it's legitimate. Challenge. So again, if somebody calls you, challenge them. Don't you get the phone calls from places like, I don't know, Sky or the bank, who sometimes instantly ask you to share security question details. It's an easy one. So ask them who they are. Ask them for a phone number, even if you're not comfortable to call them back on, or just call the bank or the general number back to ask them if that's how they would behave. And protect yourself. So report suspicious activity immediately. Really, don't let it don't let it linger, because the longer it's there, the more access people can get, the more damage can be done. And don't try and fix it yourself, because sometimes you can make it worse. So get the right help. Kind of the key takeaway, I think, for me, is that core theme is common sense. So we're all born with it. Sometimes we don't use it. So just pause and take a common sense approach to what you're seeing and what you're hearing. That's it from me, I think. Hopefully that was useful.
That was extremely useful, David. Thank you so much. We're going to hand over to Richard in a second just to talk us through the Unity Research Panel. But before we do, just David, let you catch your breath, have a little rest for a minute. But we will come back to you for some questions shortly. I just want to say how helpful I think it was to get that overview and level of detail about cybersecurity. And we have had quite a few questions, so we will be coming back to you in a minute. But Richard, over to you for now.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Thanks, David. Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Rose, and I'm one of the 3 trade union relationship managers here at Unity Trust Bank. And I get the pleasure of talking to you today about the Unity Research Panel. And this is where we want to hear from you guys. It's a chance for you to share your feedback on a range of topics, from products, services, or maybe any future developments you'd like to see. There is a QR code there. The slides will be available at the end of the presentation, so you will be able to have access to the QR code later. But if you're interested in providing some feedback to the bank, I'm reliably informed by our marketing function it's not an onerous task. You can give as little or as much time as you wish, but simply scan the QR code, answer a few questions, name, email, which union you belong to, and leave the rest up to us. We'll be in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Your voice is really important to us here at Unity Trust Bank. And as the slide says there, your opinion does make a difference to us at Unity. So if you're interested, please scan the code and register your interest. Thank you. And whilst I'm here, I'm going to grab the opportunity. There's the Rogues Gallery. So there's myself and my 2 colleagues, Gareth and Claire. We make up the 3 trade union representatives for the bank. I'm just going to grab a couple of minutes of your time just to talk about the Union Hub, which can be found on our website, www.unity.co.uk/union-hub. If you haven't done so already, please, it's a plea for me, just take 5-10 minutes out your day, go to the website, have a quick look at the Union Hub. It's a dedicated section for our trade union customers. You will find all sorts of information there. You'll find all the forms that are required to add and remove signatories or internet banking users. You'll find information how to operate your bank account. There's tutorials. There are even some short 1 to 2 minute type of YouTube videos on how to do things, especially around internet banking. So if you haven't done so already, please just take 5-10 minutes out your day, have a look at the Union Hub section on our website. You may find something of interest. In fact, I'm sure you will find something of interest there. And whilst I've got everybody, just to remind everybody of our dedicated union team back in the office here in Birmingham, the telephone number there for the Unity Experience team is 0345 245 0020. As I said, our numbers are there. That's the office number to the dedicated union team. These will be available at the end of the presentation when the slides are made available. So thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. And as Richard just said, we'll make sure that these slides are sent out to you all along with the recording. Like I said, it'll either be later today or it will be first thing tomorrow morning. So I'm going to turn now to the questions that you, the audience, have been sending in. Some of them I've jotted down from the chat as well. So I wonder whether you can talk a bit more, David, about passwords. You talked about this idea of a passphrase, but also we've had a few questions about passwords. So hopefully everyone will know what I mean by an app, maybe on your smartphone, that saves passwords for you. Are they safe? Are they the sorts of things you might recommend? Or any other things about passwords that people obviously need to be thinking about day to day?
Yeah. So firstly, taking a cue from Bill, don't write them down. Don't put them on a post-it note as much as it's tempting.
Poor Bill. I
They
really
are.
felt for him in that video.
They are. We get they're painful. But yeah, the easy thing is to create a passphrase. So that could be, it's up to you. As many, usually there's a minimum that people ask for, which is generally around 8 characters. But the passphrase can be as long as you want it to be, as long as you can remember it. So that's the key thing, is remembering it. And you can chain words together. It could be something that you say at home, maybe a phrase or something you've used at home. And then just spice it up a bit with a bit of a special character, so uppercase, lowercase, or a number. So I like the old phrase of KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So passwords don't have to be that painful. So yeah, password managers. They are useful. The thing that you'll find though is probably most of them aren't free. So they are, if you get them, they are safe if you get them from a reputable place like the Microsoft Store or the App Store or the Apple Store. Most of them aren't free, so you might have to pay a subscription for them. But obviously, stick to the bigger, better rated apps that are on the store. You'll be able to tell those from the reviews and reputations. So we do use them at Unity Trust Bank. So we have a password keeper that we encourage people to use. But then we are logging into multiple systems, so it makes management of multiple passwords easier. If you've only got one password or so, then I would suggest probably save the money and just make sure you remember it.
Thanks, David. We've had quite a few questions about sharing of devices. So I'm imagining here we might have multiple signatories, or especially within a branch, more than one person responsible for the branch finances or banking. Can we talk a bit about shared devices? First of all, if you're sharing with someone you know, but then also sometimes we all may have to use a shared device, for example, in a library or another public place. So what are your thoughts on that?
It's a bit of a trickier one because it depends where it is. So yeah, the library example. So that kind of thing, if you're going into an internet cafe and it's not a machine that's known to you, I wouldn't do my internet banking on it. So think about what you're using it for. So in a public place, and this goes for the same for public Wi-Fi. So if you're going to connect to Wi-Fi that's free, you just have a think about really what you're going to do. So I wouldn't be doing any of my financial transactions or giving over any sensitive information in an internet cafe or on public Wi-Fi. I don't want to get too technical, but we would use a VPN, so something that secures your machine for the traffic to go over. So it's a virtual private network, and it creates a secure tunnel between you and the place that you're trying to communicate with on your laptop if you're going to use public Wi-Fi. But generally, I wouldn't be using public Wi-Fi to transmit sensitive data. Shared machines, if they're in a workplace, is a different thing because ideally that machine is patched, it's up to date, it's looked after by the IT department, and it is kind of a common practice. So I know some businesses have hot desks where you don't generally. Some people have laptops they bring in, but others they just have a machine on a desk and it's shared. So yeah, I would think about the location and then the appropriate use of the machine, if that makes sense. So yeah, don't necessarily throw all of your financial details into an internet cafe machine.
That's helpful. Thank you, David. We've had some people ask about, I guess, tools that are often used on smartphones. So face recognition, fingerprints, eye, etc.
Yeah.
Our viewer feels quite cautious about and resistant about giving this information to the software or the hardware. Can we be sure that this is a secure method, that this information isn't perhaps going to be shared amongst other devices by the maker of the technology?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Is do we trust the Microsofts, the Googles, the Elon Musks
We've
of the
actually
world?
had several questions about trusting big companies. I think this was just a
Yeah,
good way to demonstrate it was with the use of face recognition. But in
yeah,
general, do we trust them?
it's kind of a personal thing, I think, and what your own risk appetite is. So, I've been around the security industry and then in IT for quite a long time, and I've seen the Microsofts and the Googles go from not really caring so much back in 15 years ago. Use our cloud service. All right, well, can you give us some information to tell me what you're going to do with my data and how you're going to protect it? No, not really. Use us or don't use us. That's kind of your choice. The world has moved on, so a lot of these companies that now are held accountable. And again, we're talking about the major players. This is one of the challenges with AI. There are so many AI companies around at the moment. It's kind of a bit of a grey area in, are they legitimate? Are they going to really look after your data? But generally, we expect the major players, the Microsoft, the Googles, the Apples, now to be in a mature state where the technology is there. So the way they store that data, whether it's biometric or sensitive data, on the device and on their servers in the cloud, that's quite mature now, and they are being held accountable with multi-billion-dollar fines if it's found out that they're doing something that they shouldn't. Below those, there's kind of the second, third tier vendors. Yeah, just consider what you're going to give them and what you're going to use them for, I suppose. But yeah, the bigger vendors are in a much better place than they were. I've got an Android phone and I use Face ID and fingerprint, and I'm quite satisfied now that that's secure.
Thanks, David. You mentioned there about AI. Now, is there anything we should be concerned about with regards to AI and cybersecurity, or are there anything? Is there any features within AI that we can use to our advantage? So I phrased that really badly. Pluses and minuses, basically, of AI with regards to cybersecurity. I'm trying to combine multiple questions in one. So
Yeah, definitely. So yes and no. So AI has. I love this phrase. AI gets into nearly every conversation these days. AI is a big plus in that it can help you in your daily work. So you want to create, we've just gone through a bunch of slides. You want to create a bunch of slides. It's great. Throw that information into something like Copilot or Gemini, which is Google's version, or ChatGPT. It can create slides for you. It can take a lot of the grunt work out and the hard tasks out of your day, but you still need to be careful in what you're feeding it. So if you give that sensitive information into a product like ChatGPT or Copilot, you're effectively giving it, as you would do a caller, you're giving it key information. That information then could get stored on servers. It could get reused. Some of the terms and conditions in AI products are that they can consume anything that you give it to reuse it to help train the model. So you just have to think about what you're using it for. So creating slides is a great thing. Everything that I've just shown you today is kind of publicly available. There's nothing in there. I've got no problem using AI to do that. On the other side of it, again, just have an awareness of what you're using it for and what data you're going to give it, because not everybody's has the scruples that you would hope they would have. But yeah, I suppose there's two sides of the coin. If we were looking at AI from a cybersecurity perspective, so attackers are using AI now. We're seeing the evolution of attacks with AI for the creation of attacks, and for even wording emails. And we talk about this being an arms race because on the other side of the coin, the security vendors are using AI in their tools to catch these attacks more effectively. So pluses and minuses.
yeah, absolutely. And it's worth me adding as well that your use of AI in your role as a rep is going to depend in many instances on your union's policy on it. Do contact your union to find out what they are comfortable with you using. You are also, of course, going to be bound by your employer's policy if you're using anything in that context. So do check that out first before using any AI tool for either your, for your work or for your union, your role as a rep. Okay, so we've covered AI. This is a little bit of crossover with the last webinar as well, where we talked about we were talking about online services, I think, in general. Now, do any of you have any tips for reducing our digital footprint? Information that's out there, you've suggested can be used in any kind of breach of security. Is it a good idea to reduce our digital footprint? And maybe how can we do it?
Definitely. So social media over the last few years has exploded. So there are various social media platforms, even things that you might not think are social media. So LinkedIn, for example, is a social media platform. We do have a tendency to overshare. So, the good old days of Friends Reunited, see, I'm going back a bit now, showing my age, Friends Reunited and Facebook. We used to talk about what we'd had for dinner, pictures of your dog and that kind of stuff. And generally that's kind of benign, but now the social media is everywhere. It's built into your phone. LinkedIn is a social media. It's owned by Microsoft. So again, think about what you use on a daily basis and whether you really need to share that information. Tell somebody what you've had for dinner. Don't tell them what your bank account details are or what your mother's maiden name is, because sometimes we do overshare. So think about the sites that you use, and again, look at the bigger vendors and the known sites.
Thanks, David. I'm sending all the questions to David rather than to
That's fine.
Martin or Richard. So
I'm happy.
If you want to join in, wave at me or something. Okay, without getting into a really technical discussion, because I appreciate that this might be quite a complicated answer, but if it's not, no worries. If someone notices that their device or their IT system is acting strangely or slowing down, and you mentioned this in your presentation, what are some of the things they can do to see if there has been a breach?
Ideally, you want to get a hold of somebody that knows what they're doing. So contact your IT department or cybersecurity department. If you're on your own, and you're really on your own, there are free tools out there. So there are free virus scanners and anti-malware scanners. So again, go to a reputable brand. A Google search, most of the reputable brands will come up, or have a look at an article. But you can get free tools that will run a scan on your machine. Have a look at running a scan on the machine. If worst comes to the worst, you're going to end up, I suppose, if it's a personal machine, looking at somebody like a Currys to help you out. But it is, it's difficult to tell. I get from a technical perspective, difficult to tell whether something is actually just a technical problem or whether something more kind of nasty is going on in the background. But there are free tools out there. But I would recommend everybody has an antivirus product on their machine anyway, and probably spending £15-20 to get something decent is worth the investment.
Yeah, thanks, David. I think that's really helpful and a great tip for people if they notice something a bit amiss with their IT. Okay, we've had a bit of a scenario question. If you're in your union branch and you are wanting to set up communications, like email newsletters to your members or file sharing amongst union branch officers, what considerations should someone have while they're setting that up in order to keep member data safe? Now, we're assuming here that the branch isn't getting these services from their central union. Let's imagine it's quite a small union.
Yeah, so I suppose it's think about the technology you're going to use. So are you going to use a standard piece of technology that's out there, like a Microsoft tool, Outlook, say? If you're using webmail, that's a lot harder to secure because effectively you're putting data into the cloud, into somebody else's service. So again, you're going to kind of then, if you are going to do that, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that outright, consider how you protect the data that you're going to send. So put a password on it and share the password. Could be a repeatable password that you rotate every so often. So just let members know, or people you're going to share the data with, what the password is in advance. Comms out to people to tell them that this stuff is coming. So you want to make sure that people know it's coming and that it's legitimate, that it's from you and it is legitimate. But yeah, I would use known tools. I would not really overly put sensitive information into a webmail account. And if you go into, you want to encrypt that data first on your machine and then put it into that account with a password, ideally.
Thanks, David. I mean, you mentioned a few things there that I hope will be familiar to lots of people in the audience, but if they're not, these are all things that you might have already used in your work if you have a job that uses a lot of these elements like email, uploading files, etc. If they're not, these might be things that you could get support from your union, especially from a learning department or similar service. So don't fret, contact your union if in doubt on these issues, if you're come across these in the course of your union work. Okay, it's very nearly time to wrap up, but before I just hand over to Martin for a final few words, I wanted to really thank the audience. We had over 200 people join us live on a really engaging and really informative session from David and from Richard as well about this issue. Before we went in, an hour ago, I thought I vaguely knew what cybersecurity was, but I have learned loads and also noticed maybe quite a lot of bad habits I've got in my day-to-day work. So it's definitely something I'll be changing too. I hope many of you have also learned some best practice tips and some advice to help you day to day. I'm going to hand over to Martin to wrap up, and then we'll close.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much to the 200 or so that joined today. So I'm Martin Barrett, I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Unity. Big thank you to David for such an engaging session. We could probably go on for another half an hour or so, couldn't we? But we haven't got time to take all the questions. I think the reassuring thing, many of you will be customers of us here at Unity, and you have your money, your branches, your members' money here. The good thing is we've got David here looking after that, and he puts us all through our paces. So everything that he's just talked through about keeping us safe, that's exactly and a lot more what's deployed here at the bank to keep you and your money safe as well. So he deploys things like phishing simulation tests, 2 of which I've got caught out on personally this year, because as you can tell from the last 50 minutes, he is very, very good. So thank you very much for all your participation today. Thank you again to David and to Richard in particular. We're going to carry on doing these. The next one's going to be in a couple of months. We'll probably do that a little bit specifically on online banking here at Unity, because we're making some changes and the date is to be confirmed. But thank you as ever once again.
And thanks again from me. You've been a great audience. We'll see you again next week for a webinar about energy prices and specifically how the war in Iran is affecting those, but not just from a personal point of view, how they're affecting your workplace and what you as a rep can do about that. So do look out for the registration for that. See you again soon. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks all.